All right, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining me live to discuss executive function coaching at Eaton Arrowsmith Academy Online. For those of you unable to make it today, we do appreciate you taking the time to watch the recording at home. Please note that we will be saving some time at the end of this presentation for questions. Josh Poirier, our program director, will also be manning the chat and answering some questions in the background during the session. Today's info session is geared towards providing you with an in-depth look into our new executive function coaching program, which we started in October of 2025. It's something that we've been looking to do for quite a while now. It complements a lot of the programs that we have, and its root in executive functioning is something that is of high importance in the Arrowsmith program as well, and the programs that we have at our academy. And so we've been thrilled with the positive response from our community, as well as the progress of our clients throughout the academic year. 1/3 of our clients that joined in October 2025 have actually stayed with us all the way through until the end. So that's about 9 months' time. It's been such a journey. We're learning as we go. We're sharpening our skills. We're getting better at identifying the different executive function areas and being able to provide with different strategies that can really help to move some of these areas forward and drive closer to reaching some of the goals that we have. In terms of executive function skills, we all have different areas of strength and weakness for which we need to compensate. For example, each and every person that has joined this info session had to successfully use a combination of executive function skills, likely a different combination depending on what areas of strength or weakness that you have to make it here today. Bonus points for those of you who made it here on time. And so my name is Raphaël Croisetière. You can call me Raf. I know it's very French, very hard to say. And I'm proud to be the head executive function coach, working alongside our other coaches in Pranav and Jill. Just three of us this year and looking to expand into the next year. I've had the pleasure working with the Eaton Arrowsmith organization for the past 15 years in various roles, from a teaching assistant to principal and kind of everything in between. So for the first 10 years, I'm working at the on-site location in Vancouver, British Columbia, following attending University of British Columbia, and fortunate to join the online division for the last 5 years. Honestly, I've continued to be impressed with how seamless the online model has been in terms of both delivering the Arrowsmith program as well as our growing executive function coaching program. I feel like as a whole, we have gotten better at participating online and using online platforms, perhaps due to COVID, and in that getting just more and more seamless with providing the information, meeting with people. People are used to using Teams now. Before it's like, oh, I don't know how to use Teams, just Zoom. I don't know how to use Zoom, just Teams. At this point, we're kind of getting to a point of comfort, and with comfort, comes progress. And so we're going to get started by looking into some of the similarities and the differences between executive function coaching and the Arrowsmith 4 hours a week program, which are both offered at Eaton Arrowsmith Academy Online. And so, although we will be giving you a glimpse into the Arrowsmith program's 4 hours a week program, please make sure to tune in tomorrow, June 12th, where our program director, Josh Poirier, will be providing a much more detailed overview. It is important to mention that when it comes to these two programs, there's not necessarily an order. It doesn't need to complete one before the other. In fact, we do have some clients that are participating in both programs simultaneously. And so they're depending on your schedule, depending on your availability, there may be more of a match for one program over the other. Honestly, just the fact that these programs complement each other so well just means that they are more or less interchangeable, depending on what your needs are and what your goals are. If we start by looking on the right-hand side of the Arrowsmith program, top thing, if there's one thing to remember with Arrowsmith, we are looking to avoid any compensatory strategies. Anything that's going to make the exercise easier, or anything that means that you will be, instead of using and isolating one of the specific brain regions, if you are now looking to kind of use some of your extra strengths that are outside of those brain regions, you're not going to get the kind of change that we're looking for just because you're not isolating that area. We have pre and post Arrowsmith assessments. And so as soon as you join the program, we will do a full assessment on all different areas, seeing your strengths and weaknesses. And of course, following that, once we've chosen your programming and once you have completed your program, there is a post-assessment as well, just to kind of see what kind of progress there is, if we're looking to move on to something else, and if there's something else that's becoming a priority for you or your child. Age-wise, 6 years and above, it's not necessarily set in stone. We have had students that join us at a slightly younger age. It has to do with the ability, honestly, just to be able to focus and sit for 45 minutes. Not every 6-year-old can do that, although we have met quite a few that were not only able to do it, but also thrived. It is a 4-hour-a-week program. It runs on Monday to Thursday, and it is data-driven. Data is the name of the game. We collect all kinds of data from all of the clients and all of our students that join us. We use that data to goal set. We use that data to motivate. We use that data to see if it is time to switch onto something different. If we shift over to the left, we're going to highlight some of the executive function coaching specific items. First off, you have the zone of proximal development. This is one where challenging tasks become achievable with support. This stems from Vygotsky's work. He's somebody who's emphasized that learning occurs most effectively in this zone. The other two zones would be the first one where you're working 100% on your own, and then the other one, the final one, where you are being taught by someone to do something that you couldn't achieve independently. So that would be more like the Arrowsmith model, where you have an instructor that is more an authority, and they are teaching you how to do it. So it's not something that you're able to do completely on your own. Whereas our zone of proximal development is where you're just kind of working with somebody who is not telling you what to do, but they are supporting you. They're providing observations. They're more of a sounding board. They're kind of putting up a mirror in front of you so that you can reflect on what it is that's being done. Equalizing relationship. So coaches do not represent a figure of authority, as I mentioned. They are there in a supporting role to ask questions, sounding board. We have our clients explore their own perspectives. They're the ones that are leading this. We are not there. We don't know what their goals are. We don't know what their aspirations are. That all comes from them. We're there to be the biggest cheerleaders, judgment-free, empathy-full, you name it. Focused on planning for the future. This occurs in that we're breaking down the steps needed to achieve the client's future goals. Oftentimes, our clients have an idea of where they want to go in life, having trouble or becoming overwhelmed when it comes to taking, planning, and prioritizing the next few steps. And so that's actually something that we see quite a lot with our clients. It's not that we don't know where to go, it's just it can become, yeah, they're not really sure. Do I take this step? Is this too big of a step, too small of a step? Is it in the right direction? Is this okay? Is it not okay? Am I going backwards now? It can just become a very overwhelming process, again, if you don't know where you're going and what the priorities are. Age-wise, for us, we're looking at 11 years old and above. We'll go into a bit more detail in terms of the different executive function areas. One of the pre-executive skills that we look for is metacognition. So essentially, your idea of being able to think about and evaluate your own thinking, taking a bird's eye view and kind of analyzing where you're at. If you're 11 years old or younger, you probably haven't had the experience in life yet to be able to develop that goal setting. And also there's a maturity level that kind of comes with age as well and life experience. And so, again, similar to the Arrowsmith program, it's like we would consider someone perhaps, around 11 years of age, but really to truly benefit, we're looking at a slightly older population. We are 1 hour per week. So the 1 hour per week, and we'll go through this in a bit more detail towards the end of the presentation, but you meet 1 hour a week. It's divided into 2 different sessions. The first session is mostly geared at setting up the week, seeing how things are going, what are some of our priorities for this week, setting goals, developing strategies, and then the following meeting later in the week, slightly shorter, usually around 20 minutes. And that one is checking in to see, okay, are we getting closer to our goals? Do we need to kind of, we're going to reflect and start to make some changes here just to really tweak things to make them go in the right direction. So just kind of analyzing and making some small changes. Above all, it's outcome driven. So whether you're aiming to successfully complete an interview, you're learning how to do laundry, create a budget, our goal is to create a sense of exigence in reaching these goals. To differentiate the two programs, I've always liked to use the analogy linking obtaining a learner's permit to Arrowsmith. So you got to pass your written test, pass your driving exams with an instructor, versus the process of practicing the skills that you've learned to become a bit of a better driver each day. That's more like your executive function coaching. So just because you've passed your driving exam and you've gotten your learner's permit doesn't mean that you're automatically a good driver. It means that you've learned and you remember the skills and the things necessary to successfully drive, but that's going to come with practice. Okay, looking towards more of the middle, so where these two programs kind of intersect, very much tailored to the individual, whether it's the Arrowsmith program working on an area of deficit or whether it is looking towards the individualized goals and where you're at. Everything is goal oriented, and so we track everything. We motivate to reach the goals. We work very closely with you to set them and make sure that you are on board. Both of them deeply rooted in executive function skill development, trying to improve quality of life, and above all, limiting any unnecessary suffering. Why suffer if you don't have to? All right. And so our overarching goal is to continue working with our clients until they've reached the point where they no longer need support. We're trying to work ourselves out of a job here. As soon as we're at the point where we're either reaching the goals, we've got that job, we've gotten all of our functioning levels to the point that we were looking for, honestly, then it's time to go ahead and use those to your advantage. Go ahead and go out into the real world and see how these work in the day-to-day. All right, on to the brain. So as you know, the brain is our thing. It's what we focus on mostly here at Eaton Arrowsmith Academy Online. And for us, specifically with executive functioning, there's three main areas that we look at. And so you've got your prefrontal cortex, your hippocampus, and your amygdala. So starting off with the prefrontal cortex, this is going to be the highly developed part of the frontal lobe. It's involved in many higher order cognitive processes, such as decision-making, reasoning, logic, expressing your personality, social understanding, and of course, your executive functioning. It is one of the last regions in the brain to mature. Very important in processing moment-to-moment output from our surroundings and comparing that output to past experiences and then react to them in an appropriate way. So that's really a key point here. And we'll revisit that a little bit later as well. So the prefrontal cortex is where we manifest our insight, our foresight, and planning capabilities into the actions that define who we are. So this is that personality development. When faced with a problem or a novel situation, we turn to our prefrontal cortex first and foremost, which then consults with the hippocampus. The hippocampus, kind of the lower part of the brain here down at the bottom, this is the part of your brain responsible for memory and learning. It is also part of the limbic system, which deals with emotion. The hippocampus converts short-term memories into long-term memories by organizing, storing, and retrieving memories within your brain. It has a role in spatial memory as well, which is going to be the memory about your environment, including visual memory, verbal memory, which is remembering what words to say. The hippocampus and the amygdala do work together to connect memories to emotions, which will generate an emotional response. And so, for example, what we mean by that, imagine yourself, you're meeting a puppy for the first time. Oh, it's so cute, it's fluffy. Dog is super excited to see you, wagging its tail back and forth, licks your hand, takes a treat, best experience ever. Well, your hippocampus and your amygdala are going to work together to store that memory in your brain. And then the next time you see a puppy, you're going to remember these past experiences. You're going to remember how the tail was wagging. You remember how much fun it was to give a treat. And then that's going to bring back all these great memories and be like, oh yeah, of course, love puppies. Anyone got a treat? Let's go give that puppy a treat. The same is also true for negative experience. Like, what if the dog was not friendly? What if the dog was actually a math class where you had a really poor experience in the past? And so they do work in both ways here. In terms of kind of understanding and also differentiating the prefrontal cortex and the hippocampus, the railroad metaphor is something that can be used to conceptualize the roles of both of these two brain areas. The hippocampus is more responsible for kind of laying down the new tracks, while the prefrontal cortex is responsible for the flexibility in switching between these tracks. Okay, so the more tracks that you have, the more possibilities to switch, the more successful you're going to be, and the less rigid you're going to be. Finally here, looking at the amygdala processing center for your emotions, this is your fight or flight response. This is what is looking to keep you safe in the face of any perceived danger. As you can see, it's really close to your hippocampus there. Hippocampus is just behind it. You may call this the gatekeeper to the hippocampus. It links emotions to many other brain abilities, especially memory and learning. You may be familiar with a term that's quite popular within education. It's called amygdala hijack. This is the idea when your amygdala is just thrown for a loop. You either think you're in danger, think you're in really high stress, and all of a sudden you start to get tunnel vision. And it's really, really difficult to reason when you're in that state. And it's a time to take a pause, try and regroup, and then approach back once you're no longer in amygdala hijack and you've kind of brought yourself back down to a space where you're open to talking about it. You can reason. The worst time you want to try and reason with somebody is when they are in that heightened state and things are information just seems to be going in one ear, out the other, and it's just not the best time. Coaches work with clients to identify the potential triggers that lead clients down pathways and may result in negative behaviors. They do this by providing tools, strategies, and insight on how to shift towards a different pathway. So the more a new pathway is used, the higher the potential shift from a bumpy gravel road to a paved highway due to the brain's neuroplastic qualities. And so essentially, we are what we repeatedly do. If we don't start to change, if we don't start to adapt, if we don't start to kind of reflect on, is it working? What do I need to change? Then we are going to be continuing to be in the same position. If you do the same things, you're going to get the same results. All right, executive functions, here we are. So executive functions are the skills that guide our behavior as we move towards achieving a goal or task. As mentioned previously, you have all used a combination of these skills in order to attend today's info session. The big question is, why are these so important? Well, executive functioning skills are linked in effective strategy use, effective performance, academic success, focused effort, confidence in own competence, huge, and positive academic self-concept. Depending on the client and their need, we may start working on different areas of executive functioning, starting with our pre-executive skills. And so pre-executive skills in the top left-hand corner there, you have metacognition. So metacognition would be taking a bird's eye view and evaluating participation. What am I doing? How am I doing it? What needs to be done differently? We kind of briefly touched upon this when we discussed the age for executive function coaching, and that anyone kind of at 11 or lower may not have developed enough to be able to have this level of metacognition. Or you may have somebody who is challenging and maybe in neurodivergent population, and this is just something that's difficult. Well, if that's the case, this is where we would start. Another major aspect of executive functioning and pre-executive functioning skills, goal setting. What do you want to achieve? This enables people to define the changes they want to see or the things they want to achieve in their lives. Without strong goal setting skills and strategies, the other executive functions can struggle to manifest because there aren't appropriate goals to drive towards. If you don't know where you're going, you're likely not going to get to your destination, point blank. Specifically for executive function coaching, we focus on using SMART goals. So SMART goals being the acronym, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Sure, do I want a new red Ferrari in the driveway? Absolutely. But how am I going to get there? What steps am I going to take? That's the key behind executive functioning and specifically goal setting in this case. Well, moving on to the top right, core executive functions. This is where the majority of our clients are needing support, especially at the beginning. And so starting off with our inhibitory controls, very, very popular one. There's different types. You have your cognitive, which is kind of controlling your focus, staying on task. There's a behavioral aspect, which is you're controlling your urges, resisting the urge, maybe to make a joke in the middle of this presentation. An emotional component, so regulating your emotions, trying to stay cool, calm, collected in the face of stress or anxiety. Your motor control, so controlling your behavior, trying to stay seated and attend a lecture, even if you're bored. All of these things really are easier said than done, and there's lots that goes into keeping these in check. Working memory next up. So this is more holding information while you're engaging in a task. So it's not just about memorizing, but it's about doing something. You're working with this. It's not just kind of memorizing and then regurgitating. You've got to do something with that information. And so, for example, like a difference between short-term memory and working memory would be that if I had a list of animals, let's say a tiger, a lion, zebra, a hippo, and I just said, all right, repeat those back to me. If you're able to do it, that's going to be an example of your short-term memory. If I now ask you, okay, I want you now to list them, but in alphabetical order, well, now you have to work with this information. You have to do something with it. That's going to be more engaging your working memory. Okay, so a bit of a difference there. Cognitive flexibility is something I struggle with, I'm not going to lie to you guys. It's the ability to change what you're thinking about, how you're thinking about it, and what you're going to do about it. So being flexible depending on the changing demands of the environment. People that struggle in this area, they tend to present as more rigid. They might have repetitive behaviors. They may engage more in kind of perfectionism. They might have more of a fixed mindset, experience frustration, a bit more tunnel vision. This can be difficult. This is where you feel stuck and you're not sure where to go. Okay, so those are going to be your core executive functions. Next up, we go bottom left. You've got your structural executive functions. These ones really look to the answer to the question of what is the most effective way to get to my goals? Big one, and again, one of the most popular up there with inhibitory control is your time management. Time is a constant. We don't have control over time. We aim to try and manage ourselves relative to time. There's an element of time awareness, which is how much time we think is going by. Time estimation, how much time we think we need to take to successfully completing a task. And being able to use both of those and being able to use both of those effectively is what's going to get you your task done at a certain time, get you at a certain place when you need to be, not miss a flight, be on time for your meetings, things like that. The ADHD population in particular, we do see struggles here and something with time blindness. You just you start to engage in an activity, you just start getting really, really involved in it. Next thing you know, it's 5 hours later and it's 3 in the morning. Planning and prioritizing. So plan, decide on a goal or a task and arrange it in advance. Prioritizing has mainly to do with the planning of tasks within a limited time frame. So whether it's a day, a week, a month, a semester, we're looking to break down goals into manageable pieces that can be planned within a time frame. Something or a strategy that we use for this, something called the Eisenhower matrix. You may be familiar, you may be not, but it deals with kind of a quadrant. So you have kind of 4 quadrants, and they deal with a level of urgency and importance. And so top left, most urgent, most important, do that now, right away. And then on kind of the opposite of that, on the bottom, kind of in the bottom quadrant, then you would have what is least urgent and least important. This is something you just got to stop doing. It's not getting you anywhere. It's not important. You just got to kind of kick that habit if you can. Something I'm working on, screen time. I got a pointless scrolling. Many other things I could be doing at that time. That shouldn't be the priority, although it is in this world, or it's emerging. Organization, again, another really big one. 2 different types here. You've got your environment, which is kind of like your items, your papers, computer files, your emails, room, desks, and then you have your informational. So thoughts, plans, feelings. This helps with creating efficiency in the accessing of things and information that support you in achieving goals. It's important to mention as well that maintaining these systems is just as vital. So getting organized is one thing, staying organized is quite another. Okay. All right, so looking over bottom right, you've got the active executive functions. This is really where you've figured out your goal, you've started to kind of organize yourself around it, you're managing your time, you've prioritized everything. All right, well, now it's time to make sure that we're continuing to drive these forward. So big one, task initiation, so the ability to begin in an efficient or timely manner. Once again, you might know what needs to get done, but if you don't start, it's not going to matter. It's not going to get done anyway. Usually we see more of a fixed mindset here. There's a level of procrastination that comes into play. A common way to work on this can be eat the frog. Do first thing that you weren't looking forward to, or the most daunting thing, get it out the way first. Maybe it's joining a study group so that you have other people that keep you accountable, or join executive function coaching with us. Self-monitoring, so consciously evaluating your performance in the moment, keeping an eye on the big picture. you're bridging the gap really between the expectations and the reality. A few more components of this, you have a self-reflection piece. So is what I'm doing going to help me reach my goal? And self-regulating, do I need to adjust my behavior to get closer to my goal? So this is really kind of the finessing. This is really the end part. This is the execution, like the fine-tuning, if you will. Onto cognitive task shifting. So conscious change of effort. It's changing how we're using our brain to accomplish varying tasks. And so we might become stuck and becoming aware that it's time to do something different. It is a form of cognitive flexibility. Cognitive flexibility is kind of thinking in different ways where your cognitive shifting is actually doing something different. And so I mentioned earlier that while I may not be the most cognitively flexible person, once I've kind of been told, or once I'm exposed to a new way of solving this problem, or a better way of solving this problem, I'm not one to dwell and keep doing it one way. Let's shift, let's get it going, let's move on to something that's going to get me closer to my goal in a more efficient way. And so those two can be confusing at times. I hope that helps to clear those up. And then last one here, goal-directed persistence. This is going to be your ability to maintain and focus through all tasks in order to achieve a goal. You're going to be continuing through adversity, you're applying effort to complete this task, and you're not giving up, you're not tapping out, you're staying in there right until the end. All right, so lots of information there. Let's take a look at what happens kind of when these executive functions fail. If possible, try and see if you can catch which executive functions are lacking here, knowing that it could also be a combination. All right, let's have a look. All right, some of those might have been a bit familiar. I think it's important to take a moment to acknowledge that we have all been in one of these situations at some point in time. The difference is that we may have figured out a way to use a different strength of ours or a different executive function to counteract some of the challenges that we have faced. If we look at the top left, you've got someone overwhelmed with work, everything keeps piling up, you're starting to get anxious. Amygdala might start to be going into kind of hijack mode. You're feeling trapped. You might be staying up late, losing sleep, going to sleep late, waking up late, not eating right. I mean, it can really start to be a slippery slope. Top right, this might be something that you see when you walk into your child's room. Trouble with organization, forgetting where things have been placed, often leading to being late or unprepared for school or work. You're missing assignments, maybe incomplete homework projects, things of that nature. Bottom left, your time management skills letting you down, either forgetting the time for the meeting or overestimating how much time you have or not being aware of how much time you'll need to complete everything you need before you get there. And then leading in, rushing out the door. To be fair, it looks like this person grabbed everything they needed, but it's probably just going to be on the sidewalk now. So I mean, you win some, you lose some. Bottom right, troubles with inhibition control. Couldn't hold back the urge of making an impulse buy or going on a shopping spree. So like I said, this is something we've all kind of experienced at some point in our lives, but we've figured out a way and we've reflected and we've monitored and we've made sure that this isn't something that we continue to do. All right, the role of the executive function coach is for those people who haven't quite gotten there yet and are still experiencing some unnecessary suffering that have caused by some of these areas that might not be working together, that might be still, using old established pathways and haven't quite, used neuroplasticity to their benefit yet, and creating really that solid highway that's going to get you right from point A to point B as fast as possible. All right. We've also mentioned that there's a kind of an interconnection between the executive functions. That's what we're going to take a look at next. Okay, so here we're having a look at a little case study, the case study looking at homework completion. And so this deals with how executive functions work together in helping us to reach our goal, or how challenges in some areas may increase the level of difficulty to complete the task. And so let's go through this together. So starting at the top, so you are at school, sitting at your desk, You are using your working memory, listening to the homework from the teacher. You got to remember what needs to be done, how it's going to be done, by when, and then again, working memory, you got to do something with this. Well, you got to put it into your phone, set yourself an alarm, use your planner, make sure you write what you got to do, all the detailed information. Once that's in there, okay, you've got it locked, on to the next thing. So head back from school, time to start your homework. Well, listen, inhibitory control, like we said, it's not easy. There's a lot of different ways to be distracted. Well, that Nintendo Switch that was just on the side of your desk, well, all of a sudden now it's in your hands, and all of a sudden now you've got 2 hours that passed because, man, that game was just, you were just so involved in it. It's something that you enjoy. It's just time flies when you're having fun. And then next thing you know, it's like, oh, snap. Like, I got to get back into my homework. I got to make sure I have enough time. This is where your time management can come in and really come in to save you. The awareness and the estimation, again, big pieces when it comes to time management. So in this situation, all right, I've just wasted 2 hours on Nintendo Switch. Now I've got to be aware, okay, I've got about 2 hours before I need to go to bed just to make sure I'm getting my 8 hours in. I'm estimating that I've got about 1 hour left of work. If my awareness and if my estimation are on point, that means I should be good to go. Something that can be helpful with time management, we've talked about the Eisenhower matrix, so looking at the level of urgency and the level of importance, and then something else can be the Pomodoro method. So if you haven't heard of that, the Pomodoro method is where you are kind of chunking up your time. So you'll set up a timer for maybe 25 minutes of solid work and then 5 minutes of a break. And so with that way, you're being aware of how much time you're using, and it's keeping you on track. Self-monitoring piece. So you have a self-reflection. Is what I'm doing getting me closer to my goal? If yes, you're on the right track, no problem, keep going. On to the next one, self-regulation. Do I need to adjust my strategy or my behavior if everything that I'm doing is getting me closer, if I'm going to be within my time limit, it's not almost 3 a.m. and I got school at 7, then hey, everything's going good. Like, make sure you keep going in the right direction. If not, then you need to switch it up, then you need to adapt. Okay. And so that gives you an idea of how, if your executive functioning is more or less working together and it's streamlined, you would still be able to reach your goal even if you had 2 hours pass. But what if things didn't quite go to plan? What if, as you're at the end of class, you're trying to write down the last couple of notes that your teacher is saying. It's like maybe it's your auditory processing isn't quite there, and that's even making it more difficult. Next thing you know, like, they've already talked about the homework, you've written nothing down, everybody's already getting up, they're leaving class. And then, like, when you get home, well, it's going to be hard to stay on task because you might not even know what that task is. And so, like, even just from the beginning, like, you don't write your homework, then you get home, then you're, on your Nintendo Switch, maybe it's not 2 hours, maybe it's 6 hours. And then it's just, again, this kind of slippery slope. And then you're going to sleep late, you're trying to make it up. Now your friend is, you're talking to your friend. Hey, are you almost done with that project due tomorrow? It's like, oh no. And then here we are. No need to manage your time. You're going to be working all night anyway. And so it's just like the breakdown of one of these different areas can really have an impact on the rest of it. And then, that person might then start to develop like less motivation to go to school, less motivation to learn. You develop a negative association with learning. And so they all really, really work together. And you can see here how some strengths, like a strength in time management, could make up for some challenge in inhibitory control. Oh, I got it. Okay, so always working together. You can see how the strengths and weaknesses really interact with one another here. All right. So we've talked about executive functions. Now let's get a little bit into the role of the coach. And so kind of step one, well, keep in mind that a coach is a neutral figure, not an authority figure. They are just there to hold up a mirror to the client. They're working as a sounding board. Everything is client focused. We want to try and get to know the client, build trust, build rapport. In fact, the first session that we have is something that we call an initial assessment, which is 1 hour in length. And that's where we're honestly trying to get to know the client as best as we can. Understanding maybe the underlying challenges, the unnecessary suffering, things that we talked about a little bit at the beginning. Anytime that we start working with a client, if we're kind of using the hierarchy of needs, those familiar with Maslow, you have kind of starting at the bottom of a pyramid there. You have your physiological, making sure, all right, so you're getting enough sleep, like how's your food, like what kind of foods are we eating, you got shelter, and then kind of moving up, okay, you're feeling safe and secure, healthy, you got family and social abilities, awesome. love and belonging? Are we able to develop friendships, family, a sense of connection? And then all the way up kind of to the top where you got your self-actualization, feeling accepted, feeling you have a purpose, feeling you have potential. And so, depending on where we're at, like you might be spending more on, the safety and security. You might be looking more at the belonging piece, developing relationships, developing friendships, a sense of connection with the family. And so the really big step, the real huge foundation is, yeah, getting to know your client and having your client get to know you as well. Knowing what their current systems are. Everybody's got a system. The system might not work and it might not get you to the intended goal, but everybody's got a system that they're using and continuously updating. So step number 2, so once you've got to know each other, you're feeling more comfortable, you've developed some trust, developed some rapport, now you start to really have a look at some of the challenges. Where are we seeing that there is the greatest impact? What is something that we need to really prioritize and work on at the beginning? Once we've figured that out, we're going to start developing a SMART goal, so specific, measurable, attainable, relative, and time-bound. You incorporate areas of strength. So again, this is where you really change from the Arrowsmith model. We are looking to compensate. We are looking to use your strengths to try and get you ahead and closer to your goals. And then finally, once we've identified the goals, we've gone ahead and used your strengths and your weaknesses in the right places. Your strategies are becoming perfected. You're reaching your goals. You're gradually taking ownership. You've now gotten to the routine. Well, now you're going to be moving on to the next priority, or you might be moving on to something new entirely. So the idea is that we are looking to kind of work ourselves out of a job. Like once you got to where you need to be, excellent. That's exactly what our hope was from the beginning. And so the Eaton Arrowsmith Academy Online Advantage, why choose us? Why come to us? One of the main reasons, every instructor, every coach that we have is Arrowsmith trained. And so they're familiar with executive functioning on a different level. They're working with a wide range of clients with different abilities, able to identify different cognitive weaknesses, well-versed with motivation, goal setting, tracking, very patient, understanding, non-judgmental. Just this morning, 8 a.m. class, I had a client that was just raving about how I felt comfortable and how everybody was compassionate and caring and felt like they've got so many people on their team. It's success is contagious. Like when things are going your way, it just seems like everyone's working with you to win. Neurodivergent network. So we're part of a large neurodivergent community, both with the Arrowsmith program and our EAAO community, which is built from current and alumni families. They're familiar with our staff, they're familiar with our vision, they're aligned with our values, and we've had a level of trust that's established. You know what you're getting from us, and you know what to expect from us. We have lots and lots of resources available through the Arrowsmith program, and also, I think between the three kind of lead instructors, that I think it was about, Josh might have to help me here. I think it's like 45 years of experience, somewhere in that realm. Lastly, you got ASD, ADHD. So with executive function skills, they impact both of these areas quite a bit. We do see a large influx of the ADHD and the ASD population looking to benefit from executive function coaching. Again, instructors are familiar with this population. We are familiar with what works, what doesn't work, how to keep them motivated. Honestly, it's the little things. Like you can't be experienced when it comes to working with clients that have a variety of needs. Not going to be thrown off by certain behaviors. You're able to see the bigger picture. Honestly, you can just tell when someone's got it and when someone's been working with these types of clients. And so in terms of the value added, so where do we see the greatest need with our clients? The largest by far is going to be your scheduling calendars, kind of over here on the left-hand side. Keeping organized, like keeping impulses at bay, procrastination, time blindness. The majority of the clients that we deal with, this is the first area that we'll try and tackle. Following that, you got many people who are just looking to build a connection. Lots of people want to talk. Some people, may not have a big social circle. They may have trouble communicating their thoughts. They might not feel comfortable communicating with everybody. And so, this is a huge portion of what we do. We're building confidence, you're building connection. They're being comfortable with being vulnerable, putting themselves out there. And it's one of the best parts of being a coach, I have to say. Another big part of it, perspective taking. So a lot of, believe it or not, not everybody is wanting to come in and talk about, their weaknesses and talk about goals and things like that. But we help them kind of take a step back. They may have developed some habits that grew a bit more of a fixed mindset. We try and be more flexible, looking at situations from a different point of view, and making them see the light at the end of the tunnel. A lot of our clients come with a feeling of being stuck or kind of not knowing what the next step is. And even if they know what the next step is, they might not feel comfortable taking it. Overall, there's a gradual progression. So the step-by-step approach, we're trying to reduce anxiety. We're trying to create more short-term goals. The more short-term goals that you're meeting, you have short-term success, and that success kind of starts to motivate you. And then you start having more of a growth mindset and like, I'm capable of anything, like I'm unstoppable. And so you really start to get the ball rolling once you have the reduced anxiety, the reduced fear, and again, that confidence building that comes, that does come with it. In terms of some of the results that we're seeing, and so, we've had this program going for, it's going to be 9 months now. So things like looking for jobs, where to look, how do I know if it's a good fit, what kind of requirements do I need, any prerequisites, putting together a resume, looking for templates, putting together a cover letter, interview prep, role playing, practicing questions, email communication, employers with teachers. If you're not sure kind of how to structure your email or what kinds of things you want to prioritize in your email, we've got you. Organization, homework completion, project completion, not tutoring. So it's not that we're going to be there to kind of do it with you, but putting a plan together. All right, you've got this much time. Let's get your Eisenhower matrix out. What's the most urgent, most important? Boom, let's do that first. Let's set up a plan and then let's get on with it. Keeping sleep, mood, nutrition, mindfulness, that kind of goes with the hierarchy of needs. Managing debates, arguments within the house, either with family members or people outside of it. Managing impulses, kind of your inhibitory control. Health tracking, making sure you have a nice balance, making sure that you're being mindful of the amount of time that you're sitting, what you're eating, being in touch with your physical health. A big one, social connections and networking, how to build friendships. What do red flags look like? Nonverbal cues, reading the room, and then to top it off, setting up and using calendars. How do I use my calendar? How much time do I need between things on my calendar? Am I overloading the calendar, managing my time, work-life balance, and those types of things? And so there's really, like, every client is different, and as we work with more and more clients, the areas that we're able to improve their lives or to alleviate any suffering, it really starts to grow. You never really know what you're going to be working on until you get to know the client. All right, so what does the program look like? Well, let's say if you are somebody that's joined us right now, or you're somebody that's watching this at home and you're thinking, all right, yeah, no, I'm hearing what this is about. This seems like something that could be a good fit for either myself or my child. Well, the first step is going to be to book a suitability meeting. And so you would do that by sending me an email. You'd be like, hey, Raf, like I'm really interested in the program. Next thing we would do is we would set up a meeting to determine, are we the right fit? So we might be the right fit and it might be the right time, and that's great. We might not be the best fit, or it might not be the right time, and that's just something that we need to kind of follow up with. If we have a suitability meeting, yeah, you know what? We're both vibing, it works out, like what you're saying is something that we can definitely help with. Next step is determining availability. And so we meet twice per week on Monday to Friday. Typically, you want to get kind of a couple of day buffer between when you're meeting, so like Monday, Thursday, or Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday, Tuesday, Friday, things like that, just to give yourself time to work on those things kind of in between the meetings. Once we've determined suitability, we've got your availability, then we start to match you with a coach. And so we match your needs and availability with one of our coaches. Coaches specialize in different areas. And so really finding a good match with a client can make all of the difference for the experience. Once we've done all of these things, 1, 2, and 3 are done, then we have our first meeting. Like I said before, the first meeting, one of the most important ones to have is your initial assessment. It's the first meeting between the client and the coach. It takes an hour. It's where you really start to delve into, what is life like? What is life like for you? How can we improve it? What can we work on? After the initial assessment, then we begin our weekly meetings. And so whatever we determined up here in the step 2, maybe we're meeting on Monday for 40 minutes and on Wednesday for 20 minutes. And so with those meetings, we keep track of the goals, we see how things are going, we keep driving them forward. And so these are your initial steps. Of course, if there's a need to have extra communication, so if there's parent meetings that need to happen just to discuss any changes or emerging needs, those happen as needed. And we offer different registration types, and so you can either join us on a monthly, on a term, which is 3 months, or on a school year basis. And so, I mean, overall, we want to make this work for you. We try and be as flexible as we can with our scheduling. Yeah. So lastly here, thank you for, I said it's gonna be 30 minutes, it's a little bit longer. So next steps, first of all, thank you all for joining and taking the time to bear with me discussing executive function coaching. Know that once again, we are going to send a recording to all of you who have joined. Don't worry if there's something that you missed. It will be sent out to you. If you're interested in learning more about whether executive function coaching is the right fit for you or your child, the next step would be to get in touch and set up a suitability meeting like we mentioned. My email address is just there on the bottom as well as on the intro slide. All right, and then the final piece here, don't forget to join Josh Poirier tomorrow. He's going to delve into the Arrowsmith 4-hour-a-week program. Yeah, thank you guys again for joining. Till next time. Thank you.